I can honestly say that no video I've published has garnered more discussion and backlash than my review of the PL100 portable CD player. I learned a lot of people find the lack of Redbook compliance of Gapless playback in a CD player is an instant deal killer. I decided to go down the rabbit hole and better understand the Redbook format so I could become educated on the subject. As a bonus, I'm taking you with me, and at the end of the lecture, we're going to definitively test the PL100's gapless playback abilities using a fan favorite retail pressed CD and put this issue to bed once and for all.
Let's go into the Monroe world.
Hi everyone, Shane R. Monroe here. Since we're both a teach and do channel, we're going to talk about the Redbook standard and why people are pissed when a device isn't compliant with it. If all you care about is the test itself, consult the screen for a timestamp to the actual test. It may surprise you to know that CDs are not all the same. CDs used for music playback are a bit different than those used for data storage, and those are different from those used for, say, multimedia playback. These format standards were designed jointly between Sony and Philips and follow the colors of the rainbow. They are known as books because these standards were bound and grouped by colors in the official documentation. If you really want to get into the bowels of CD formats, I recommend downloading the IEC ISO standard books from someplace like archive.org. IEC 60908 specifically covers the Redbook format. The standard audio compact disc is covered by Redbook from this rainbow series of IEC ISO standards. I'll throw on the screen the main components of this standard, and they should all make sense based on what we know about audio CDs. The Redbook standard was extended a few times to include things like CD text and CD plus G, a format we've covered previously on this channel. Gapless playback is not referenced a single time inside the IEC 6908, so we need to dig in a bit deeper to understand why people believe that it is here and how this feature is indeed covered through other means. The IEC standard clearly states that an optional index gap can be added at the time of mastering to include a delay between tracks. The standard also says it should be possible for continuous content between the lead-in of the CD and the lead-out of the disc. The combination of these requirements allow for uninterrupted playback of audio on a CD while still retaining track markers for random seeking of content. When I heard the outrage of the possibility of non-gapless playback in the PL100, I will admit I was rather shocked at the response. In my 40 years of owning and listening to CDs, I've never once had a CD that didn't have pauses between tracks. When someone commented that I was basically stupid for believing that there weren't that many zero-gap CDs out there, I decided to do the research and find out just what that number might be. You won't believe it, but there's not a ton of data on this. Not empirical stuff anyway. I had to settle for an AI breakdown of genres and guesstimates of zero-gap representation. The list is interesting. For live albums and classical music, the answer is about 90% or more are zero-gap in playback. Explains a lot. I don't really listen to either one of these. For concept and progressive rock albums, it is guesstimated at 70 to 80% feature zero-gap playback. Pop, rock, jazz, and general studio albums, 30 to 50%, and this is probably my own personal biggest category. Greatest hits and compilation albums, another genre I spend a lot of time in, is estimated at 10 to 30%. It really makes sense why I'm not screaming for gapless playback, right? Finally, for DJ mixes, dance, EDM, it falls into the live/classical range of about 90%. Again, I can see why my CD collection is rather void of zero-gap content. The aggregate, again, very rough estimate, is that 30 to 50% of commercial CDs use some form of zero-gap transitions. I feel this is a bigger number than I expected and probably a lot lower of a number than some of my commentary detractors would like to believe. But what have we learned? Well, gapless playback is sort of a misnomer. Gapless playback isn't in the standards, but what is in the standards is the acceptance of an option to not include pre-index periods of time, which, yes, could be called a gap when defining track layouts. There is also an expectation by standard that you can play start to finish with no tracks at all. which the PL100 would probably do just like any other player. We have also learned that while for some people, especially those that listen to live albums and EDM, this functionality is required for their enjoyment. But even if the PL100 does produce some type of silence between tracks, there's 50 to 70% of the audience out there that wouldn't notice and probably doesn't care. Oddly, I'm a guy in the latter category. So we've taught, now let's do. So what I have here is a monster boombox from Panasonic. I did a video on this recently, really great stuff. I think you would enjoy it. That supports CD playback and aux-in, so we can use the same device to test our playback. Thanks to Google, I have a perfect test subject, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. I had to order it for this particular video. I told you I fall into the don't care about gapless playback category and don't own anything like this to test. Google claims this is sort of a standard, so instead of trying to burn a copy and worry about that busting up the party, I wanted a retail press CD to test with. So let's start with the Panasonic's playback. I'll skip ahead to a known track break and let's see how it is handled. I heard no breaks, no gaps in audio. It played correctly as I understand gapless playback should. When I conducted this experiment before, I was using a burned CD, which I thought might skew the results, but in using this pressed CD, now we'll flip over to aux-in and fire up the PL100 and get to the same point on the disc and see what that sounds like. The tiniest hiccup happens between tracks, something in the single or double-digit milliseconds category. I would consider it negligible, but those that are into this type of music, this is a no sale, and I can't blame them. You should buy what you want and get what you pay for. So you need confirmation? No, this drive should not be considered gapless, and if your enjoyment requires that, this drive simply is not for you. I still maintain that for 50 to 70% of the people out there, this drive remains a relatively inexpensive, quality DAC-driven device that can be used in almost any fashion, either as a standalone or as part of a bigger audio ecosystem. It is also possible that different drive mechanisms are sourced for this particular drive, and some have what appears to be a gap and others don't. I say this because all over the internet are arguments as to whether this device is gapless or not, with many opinions in both camps. All I can do is show you how it works here and let you make up your own mind. Listen, if you like what we're doing here, thumbs up and subscribe. Get notified of our future videos because you never know when we're going to do a follow-up just like this one. I'm Shane R. Monroe. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and we'll see you next time.